Hello and welcome to Granada Reports. We're live with the latest across the northwest.
Hello, thanks for joining us tonight. Coming up,
the man who ran the Countess of Chester Hospital as Lucy Letby murdered vulnerable babies gives evidence at the inquiry into her crimes. Tony Chambers claims Letby's father threatened him over the treatment of his daughter.
Letby's father was very angry. He was making threats.
a court hears that a young mum who took her own life suffered a campaign of abuse at the hands of her former partner, who's now on trial accused of manslaughter.
You're under arrest.
I'm under arrest.
You're under arrest for 1 count of rape and 4 counts of sexual assault.
Jailed for 27 years, the man who escapes justice for decades who raped and assaulted young boys in Rochdale.
The idyllic landscape that could become home to the Isle of Man's first onshore wind farm, but it's not without opposition.
I'll be live at Anfield ahead of a big night of Champions League football. Arne Slot faces his biggest test since becoming the Liverpool boss, as his side welcome the 15-time European champions Real Madrid to town.
And we can expect another cold night tonight across the board, with a few pockets of freezing fog before dawn. I'll have all the weather details later on in the programme.
Yeah, lots coming up, so do stay with us. But first tonight, to the former chief executive of the hospital where Lucy Letby committed her crimes, and says her father threatened to put a gun to his head during a meeting to discuss a grievance complaint she'd made.
Addressing the Thirlwell inquiry in Liverpool, Tony Chambers spoke in public about the killer nurse for the first time. He said that Letby's father was angry and felt she had been treated unfairly.
Yeah, Chambers admitted he may not have handled the meeting in the right way. He also told the inquiry that he only learnt of concerns of senior doctors about her 5 days after her final murder. Emma Sweeney has tonight's top story.
He was the chief executive at the hospital that became a predator's playground. But despite the global headlines, Tony Chambers has refused to speak publicly before now.
I am truly sorry for the pain that may have been prolonged by any decisions or actions that I took in good faith.
Between June of 2015 and June of the following year, Lucy Letby killed 7 babies and attempted to kill 7 more. Today, Tony Chambers told the inquiry he only learnt of the doctor's concerns on the unit 5 days after the final death. The following month, Letby was removed and placed on administrative duties. But after a grievance complaint was upheld in her favour, Tony Chambers met with the nurse and her parents, where he's recorded as telling her she'd be going back to work on the ward.
Letby's father was very angry. He was making threats. He was making threats that would have just made an already difficult situation even worse by threatening GMC referrals for the doctors. He's threatening guns to my head and all sorts of things.
But Lucy Letby never did return to the unit. In May of 2017, after a series of refusing to increased mortality, Tony Chambers agreed the police should be called. Even then, following legal advice, it would take another 5 weeks before they were. And despite all the concerns from clinicians, Mr Chambers was accused of offering up his own opinion to police.
You weren't stopping them making an initial assessment of whether to invoke an investigation. Of course you're not. But you're telling them, before they start that initial assessment, we don't think there's anything in this. Certainly not criminal.
I suppose what we were saying is this is our belief at the time. Why wouldn't we share that with them?
Today, Tony Chambers said he'd wholeheartedly accepted that the operation of the Trust's systems failed and there were opportunities missed to take earlier steps to identify what was happening. But he repeatedly found it difficult to accept personal blame.
The processes that we had in place weren't being used properly. And I think I must take some responsibility for that. But as the chief executive of a large hospital with over 4,000 staff, you are very much reliant upon your people, the five different layers of governance that exist in the hospital to do their job.
Tomorrow the inquiry will see the former Chief Medical Director give his evidence. He too will have to answer questions on how he handled things. Emma Sweeney, ITV News.
Well, next tonight, a man accused of killing a young mum conducted a campaign of abuse that led to her taking her own life, with a note naming him as her killer, a jury's heard today.
Kiana Dawes went missing in July 2022 after leaving her daughter with a friend in Fleetwood in Lancashire. Relatives raised the alarm after she failed to return.
Her former fiancé, Ryan Wellings, has gone on trial accused of her manslaughter. Anna Yosef has been at the trial at Preston Crown Court for us. Anna.
Kiana Dawes was 23 and the mother of a baby girl when she left her daughter with a close friend, drove to a country lane in Lancashire and took her own life. She'd left a note saying, "I was murdered," after suffering years of alleged abuse at the hands of her partner, Ryan Wellings. Wellings is now standing trial for her manslaughter. He's also charged with assault and controlling and coercive behaviour during their 2-year relationship, charges that he denies. Kiana's final note, shown on screen in court, read, "The end. I fought hard. I fought long. I went through pain no one could imagine. I was murdered. Ryan Wellings killed me. He ruined every bit of strength I had left. I didn't deserve it. I hope my life saves another by police services acting faster. Don't let bullies live free." She added that she hoped her daughter would be kept away from the monster who is called her dad. The court heard how the couple had had an intense relationship. Within weeks of meeting, Wellings had had his girlfriend's name and face tattooed on his body. But it's alleged the violence and abuse had started early too. On one occasion, it's claimed Wellings attempted to strangle his girlfriend with an iPhone cable. On another, he'd hit her in the face when she was pregnant, leaving her with a black eye.
And Anna, today we heard from a close friend of Kiana's who was asked about the couple's relationship.
Yes, we heard from Casey Valentine, who had been good friends with Kiana since they were teenagers. She described how Kiana had turned up at her house one night, just in her pyjamas, and told her that Wellings had threatened her with a drill and said he was going to drill out her teeth. Casey Valentine said that Kiana had told her that when Wellings would attack her, he'd say, "Hitting you is like hitting a man." The court was shown a series of harrowing texts between the friends after Kiana had been battered again. Kiana texted her friend, "After he hurts me, he isn't sad or sorry. No girl or woman should be hurt by their partner." The jury's heard that the defendant will claim it was a loving relationship and that Kiana had injured herself, and he will not accept his conduct caused her death. The trial continues.
Anna at Preston Crown Court, thank you. Well, next tonight, 2 men have been jailed for a combined total of more than 30 years for a string of sexual offences against boys in Manchester and Rochdale in the 1980s and 90s.
Yeah, David Marsh and Anthony Whitehead are now both in their 70s. They targeted vulnerable boys in Rochdale who were as young as 9 and groomed and abused them for years.
Police believe there could be more victims yet to come forward. Jennifer Buck has the story.
We are all enjoying ourselves.
David Marsh has a clear interest in young boys. Videos from holidays in Thailand in the 80s were amongst the evidence found in his house. Some of the images captured too disturbing to release. It's been a painstaking 5-year investigation for Greater Manchester Police. After one victim came forward, they were looking for other survivors and tracking 2 paedophiles who were prevalent in the 1980s and 90s. They found and groomed the most vulnerable boys.
Unfortunately, the boys had quite chaotic upbringing. They ended up in the care system and would often end up on the streets of Rochdale. These men preyed on these young boys who were in Rochdale. They preyed on their vulnerabilities. They gained their trust.
Now, these crimes happened 30, sometimes 40 years ago. Do you believe there are still victims out there?
I certainly do, yes. Both Marsh and Whitehead had a keen interest in boys. We have been told by the victims that once they got to a certain age, they were too old and therefore they moved on to younger boys. So without a doubt, I do believe there'll be more victims out there.
And my message to them would be, when you're ready, we're listening. We are ready to hear your account. And what I would like to say, and I think this sentence and investigation shows, that time will never be a barrier for justice.
You're under arrest for 1 count of rape and 4 counts of sexual assault, so you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence.
David Marsh was finally arrested in 2020. He was found guilty of 27 counts of indecent assault, rape and attempted rape. Anthony Whitehead was found guilty of 6 indecent assaults against boys. The victim impact statements read to the court today spoke about how the offending had ruined the lives of the victims. All had turned to drugs to try and block out the memory, and several had attempted suicide. All of them told the same story, that as young boys they were paid with days out, new trainers, food and money for the prolonged abuse. When sentencing Marsh to 27 years and Whitehead to 7 years today, the judge said you exploited the vulnerability of these young boys to satisfy your deviant sexual appetite. They showed no emotion as they were led away. The one victim here in court today simply sobbed. Duncan Craig runs a support group for male survivors of sexual abuse.
I've got my justice isn't necessarily about that moment. It's about being believed, it's about being heard, and it's about being visible.
It has taken more than 30 years, but now the survivors have their justice. And tonight, Marsh and Whitehead are beginning their jail sentence. Jennifer Buck, ITV News in Manchester.
In other news today, and a mother and son caught in an avalanche in the French Alps while skiing were killed in a tragic accident, an inquest has heard. Catherine Vokes, who was 54, and her 22-year-old son Archie died after the avalanche swept through an off-piste area in a resort near Mont Blanc last December. The pair from Manchester were experienced skiers and were on a family holiday. Today, a coroner recorded conclusions of accidental death for both.
A man's been arrested in connection with videos posted on social media of unsuspecting women enjoying Manchester's nightlife. Today, Greater Manchester Police arrested a 27-year-old man from Bradford on suspicion of stalking and harassment. This arrest is thought to be the first in the country, linked with several viral videos on social media appearing to have filmed women on nights out, some whilst in vulnerable positions. The videos in Manchester were primarily filmed around Peter Street and Deansgate.
It's not just filming in public, because we appreciate that filming in public is legal. People can do that. But it goes over that grey area, it goes over that line where when it becomes targeted towards a particular community, particular individuals, and then put on social media for personal gain. And that's when we want to take action, and we want to kind of put that message across to the community that if you feel like you've been filmed without your consent and placed on social media, we will take it seriously.
Convicted terrorist Abdel Rauf Abdallah, the childhood friend of Manchester Arena attacker Salman Abedi, has been freed from jail. The 31-year-old was released on Tuesday when his sentence came to an end, just 2 months after the parole board refused to free him early because he was still considered at high risk of serious harm to the public and had the propensity to radicalise others. The Islamic extremist played an important role in Abedi's radicalisation, according to a report from the inquiry into the attack. Abdallah has denied any involvement in the bombing.
Tatton MP Esther McVeigh is calling on the government to provide better guidance for people coming off antidepressants. The Conservative MP brought the debate to Parliament in memory of Olivia Russell, who died in 2021 shortly after she stopped taking her medication.
When Olivia's mum came to a surgery in Tatton and told me the story, I just thought how brave she was and really how caring she was for other people. She wanted good to come out of the death of her daughter.
Right, well, next to the Isle of Man, where proposals to build the island's first onshore wind farm have been met with criticism by local residents.
Yes, Manx Utilities say building turbines in the area of Eristane could power up to a quarter of the island's electricity.
That's a lot, isn't it? Well, plans forming a significant part of the government's aim to reach a 35% reduction in emissions by 2030.
The residents say they feel abandoned with their livelihoods now on the line, as our Isle of Man reporter Joshua Stokes explains.
In the southwest of the Isle of Man, this small, peaceful settlement is home to a few hundred people. At its heart, Eristane Plantation offers idyllic views of the island, but for the surrounding residents, Their livelihoods are under threat, with plans for the first onshore wind farm looming over them.
My understanding of the nearest turbine for ourselves will be just in the middle, where you can see the cut out in the trees.
John Courtine lives on the border of the site, caring for the local bird life, but he fears the wind farm could disturb the environment in an area crucial to rare animals.
We've got 40% of the Isle of Man's red listed birds here and over 50% of the amber listed. We've got birds that are sitting on the Schedule 1 protection, which includes the hen harrier.
A selection of species have been seen nesting in the local area, but part of the plans would see this habitat taken away.
How do you remove the entire plantation and create net biodiversity again? Where do those birds go the next season? We're all for green energy. In the right position, yes, but this isn't the right position.
Despite the concern, though, Manx Utilities continue to work on their design. The plans suggest at least 3 turbines could be built on the hillside here, all measuring at a height of up to 185 metres. The site was chosen due to its higher than average wind speeds. In fact, Manx Utilities claim that the turbines could indeed power 25% of the island's annual electricity usage. For the last month, the authority has been holding public consultations, insisting that they are taking all comments on board.
Most importantly, of course, is the human impact, and that's part of the reason for doing public consultations and part of the reason why we asked the people most affected about whether they wanted one-to-one discussions with us.
How has Manx Utilities tried to address their concerns?
I think it's about listening and trying to understand what their concerns are and use that information and make sure it's in the environmental impact assessment.
Until then, residents continue to fight what feels to them like an uphill battle, a sentiment shared by their local politician, receiving a similar reception in Parliament.
The way people in the immediate surrounds of the proposed onshore wind farm have been treated has, in my view, been a disgrace.
Rubbish.
A done deal, and you do not matter. You are just collateral damage.
Rubbish.
Just driving through the area, you can see signs everywhere of the anger shown by people who live here. And there's just that overarching message from everyone we speak to that they just don't feel like they've been listened to. Kiri's family have farmed in Airy Staine for generations. Now working as a local commissioner, she fears the cost of the project could spiral out of control.
Airy Staine had been selected because it was the lowest cost option, which was just over 23 million. But we're now hearing from the chief executives that it's nearer 40 million. So trying to understand how that cost envelope has increased so massively is a big concern, not just for us, but for all taxpayers on the island.
But her concern goes beyond the finer detail.
Personally, it's been very taxing. We lost my father earlier this year, and he fought until the very end because he felt it was his life's work. Yes, it's not easy. It hasn't been easy.
And for some, that stress is beginning to boil over.
Sleepless nights, arguments over it, lots of uncertainty about the future, what future we've got up here now. Do we still want to live here now?
Nigel and Anna started investing in their home, but say the threat of turbines has put their finances at risk.
Everything we've worked for is in this property. We've got no money to, buy another property. We'll have to sell this property. Who's going to buy the property? Where does that leave us then? Potentially with absolutely nothing.
And that's a risk the authorities seem to be willing to take, with a planning application to follow in the coming months. A project that continues to divide opinion in the ongoing balance to meet climate goals. Joshua Stokes, ITV News, Airy Staine.
I'm sure it will continue to divide opinion for some time to come.
I think it will.
OK, on to sport now. And the European champions are in town, but Liverpool will be favourites tonight. Hello, Chris.
Hi, and normally you'd give that honour to Real Madrid, wouldn't you? The 15-time European champions. But they arrive at Anfield tonight sitting 21st in the Champions League table. By contrast, Liverpool can go top with a win tonight. David Chisnall can join us live from Anfield. David, this must be the most confident Liverpool fans have ever been going into a match against Real Madrid.
Yeah, absolutely. However, when it comes to the Champions League and Real Madrid, well, they are always dangerous, aren't they? The Spanish giants are the reigning champions. They've won this competition, as you say, a record 15 times in their history. This is the biggest test for Arne Slot since he took over here at Liverpool in the summer. In fact, it's a big week for him and his players, as after tonight they face Manchester City here on Sunday in the Premier League. Now, it may be his first taste of this fixture, but these two sides are no strangers to each other. 8 times they've played each other in the last 10 years, including 2 Champions League finals. Liverpool lost both of those. In fact, they haven't beaten Real Madrid since 2009.
Since I've been here, we've played Real Madrid, I think, 5 or 6 times, and obviously we've not been on the winning side yet. When it comes to these big games and you play against, the best players and the best teams, then of course you want to be, 1, involved in the games, and 2, you want to get the result, because, it'll probably be the most watched game this week.
It's a big game. Real Madrid, Manchester City dominated Europe and the league for a few years now, combined with Liverpool. So it's a special week for us, especially because we play 2 times at home.
Yeah, some big games coming up for Liverpool. So the perfect time then for Trent Alexander-Arnold to be back fit, David.
Yeah, absolutely. He's back from injury. Should start on the bench tonight.
I have a good memory of Everton, of course, but I consider Liverpool, as usual, with a lot of respect. It's a fantastic club, fantastic supporters, and so. But I'm still an Evertonian.
Alexander-Arnold. Obviously, he's a really good mate of mine, and I want him to do really well. Normally, obviously not tomorrow night, but we'll see what happens. But like I said, he's a Liverpool player.
Yeah, plenty of world-class footballing talent on display here tonight. Let's hope it's another special European night under the lights here at Anfield.
Plenty of those down the ears, haven't there? Thank you, David. In today's other football news, Pep Guardiola says he never intended to make light of self-harming after Manchester City's collapse in the Champions League last night. When asked about cuts on his face in his press conference, Guardiola explained they were caused by his own fingernail and...
To swallow right now, and so the game was good. We scored 3, we could score more, we do everything, but at the end, table through the games, to control, to defend well, and now it's not going to happen.
Well, across Manchester, Ruben Amorim has laughed off the moment pop star Ed Sheeran gate-crashed his first post-match interview as United manager. Ipswich fan Sheeran interrupted Amorim's live interview to chat with Jamie Redknapp after the draw at Portman Road last weekend. He later apologised on social media, but the United boss today didn't seem too upset by it.
I think you sometimes overcomplicate things. Was nothing. Was a simple question of say hello to one of the commentators. You call it commentators. So for me, it was nothing. I just was thinking about the game. And I was with Joaquin. Joaquin is the real star in that panel. So, so for me, it was really, really okay. It was nothing special.
Perhaps he's not an Ed Sheeran fan then. In the Championship, Burnley are into the automatic promotion places. They climbed into the top 2 with a 2-0 win over Coventry City last night. Meanwhile, Preston North End moved a place further away from the relegation zone with a goalless draw at Stoke. Wigan climbed away from the League One drop zone with a 2-1 win over Northampton. Blackpool ended an 8-match winless run by beating Bristol Rovers 2-0, and Bolton could have climbed into the playoff spots, but instead were held to a 1-1 draw at Cambridge, while in League Two, Tranmere were beaten. And there's a big game for Blackburn Rovers at Middlesbrough tonight too. Really important for their promotion chances. Are we Ed Sheeran fans, though?
Oh, yeah.
I'm a huge Ed Sheeran fan, yeah.
But would you be if he walked in and interrupted your chat right now?
I'd be like, come and sit in between the two of us, mate.
In fact, I'd be out of here. Come on, let's have Ed in this chair here, wouldn't he?
Grab a seat. Chris, thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Right, the ITV Evening News is coming up now. Here's Mary with what's on.
Coming up on the ITV Evening News, the former boss of the hospital where Lucy Letby worked faces questions over decisions and delays. A special investigation into the dangers of some weight loss injections. And we speak to pop legend Robbie Williams about his new film and career highs and lows. Would you join me for those stories and more at 6:30?
Just before we go, a quick look at the brand new film featuring the Fab Four.
Hello. How you doing, Ringo? I'm all right.
Hello, how are you doing indeed? Yeah, the Beatles have officially been given the Scorsese treatment. The film icon is a producer behind a new doco charting John, Paul, George and Ringo's first ever visit to America.
The film, which arrived on Disney Plus today, features long-lost footage of the trip to the States, which came just months after President John F. Kennedy was assassinated.
Yeah, Mr Scorsese told ITV that their success on American shores came as a bit of a surprise.
I remember clearly looking at the papers and seeing pictures of them in England and everyone ridiculing the long hair.
Most people think that they're never going to do particularly well in the United States, and they land in New York, and there you go.
It was amazing. We didn't know. No way. There's no way a English or British rock group would succeed in America.
Another doco to add to the list. Here's Joe.
Why do I need a shower? I've been out in the rain.
The faster you go, the sooner you'll be out. You'll save water too.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Thank you. Very good evening to you. A few freezing fog patches to contend with tomorrow morning. And like last night, it's going to be frosty across the board. Temperatures dip to around -5, and in sheltered spots, we'll see similar overnight lows tonight. Should be a dry day tomorrow, but winds will pick up through the afternoon. And for all of us by the weekend, it's feeling milder. You can see the ingress of that slightly less cold air across the UK over the next few days. It's not without its outbreaks of showery rain, but it shouldn't pose any problems weather-wise for us as we approach the end of this week. Back to this evening. Freezing fog could be a problem across parts of Greater Manchester, Cheshire through the early hours, but also Cumbria, so visibility will be tricky where we find those fog patches. And for all of us tonight, dry and very cold once more, with a widespread frost, temperatures down to around -5 in a few spots before dawn. On to tomorrow, the sun is up at 8:01, setting at 3:56 tomorrow afternoon. On to tomorrow's details then, a really chilly start, frosty with those fog patches lingering through the rush hour, but it will break up through the middle of the morning and skies will brighten. Into the afternoon it should stay dry, there'll be more cloud for the Isle of Man. For the rest of us, a bright and fine day, winds picking up of course, but temperatures will be chilly once more, 5 or 6 Celsius. And as we go into tomorrow evening, a few pockets of fog once again. And then to Friday and beyond, more cloud in general across the board for northwest England and the Isle of Man. But notice a bit of a jump in temperatures as we get to the weekend. It's more unsettled from Sunday with some showers, but it won't feel as cold by day and night. Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
So if it wasn't Ed Sheeran, who would you kick me out of this chair for?
Oh, nobody, my darling Jamal, nobody. But if George Clooney rocked up, then probably. But then again, he could just sit on my knee, couldn't he, if it was George Clooney? He could.
See you later. Bye-bye.